Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Smugglify, your host of the Free Play Podcast, and welcome to episode 76. I've got our usual lineup of co-hosts with me today, Jason, Winter, and Kevin. How are you guys doing this weekend?
Doing pretty well. I want to say, just in case you're not watching this in the evening, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning.
And good night.
And good night, yeah. If you're in space, good space, I guess. I don't know, because there's no real evening or morning or whatever there.
They follow a certain time zone. I remember I read about this once. They actually do, like on the International Space Station, they follow one certain time zone. But
really?
Yeah.
They have I guess they maybe have they're centered around the whatever Houston is located in whatever region or time zone. Yeah. Kevin, you're not in space.
I'm still trying to figure out if there's an afternoon or something that happens afternoon but before evening, that weird time period where you're not really sure to say. But you don't say good dusk. You're like, good afternoon, good evening, but what's in between?
I think it is dusk, though. That is what's in between. But you don't say good dusk.
Exactly.
Good dusk. Well, a good dusk to you, Kevin. It's still somewhat light outside right now.
It is.
So it is technically evening, being 8 o'clock, but it is still dusk. And we've got some interesting news for you guys this week. Now, really, I think most of the news came from this Friday. We had a lot of news regarding Hi-Rez being a little bit of sneaky individuals. We've got End of Nations coming back. The U.S. government approving League of Legends as an esport. I almost said U-sport. Dota 2 going live, and just more and more Hi-Rez news. Hi-Rez, this is not the week, or this has not been the week for Hi-Rez, to say the least. So jumping right into this, in regards to the news, we have Hi-Rez potentially violating their own EULA. It's always sometimes hard to say. EULA.
End user license agreement.
Yeah, end user license agreement. But nobody, who's going to take the time to say out all 4 words, right?
The same person who actually reads the whole thing.
Exactly. This is one of those words that's just abbreviated more than the full actual statement. Now, how does this actually work? A Reddit post from the user named, it's basically FearAO, but it's spelled FAERAO. Basically talks about how there is a software, a piece of code called Hi-Rez patch, I believe. Let's see.
Hi-Rez patch. It's high patch service.
Yeah, high patch service. Sorry, it's something with a high in it. High patch service. And it's used for numerous things. It is used for patching the clients. That is in regards to SMITE, Global Agenda, and Tribes Ascend. But it also does things like check for security, breaches, meaning that someone who's hacking or what have you, it will check for any unauthorized programs like that, utilizing the software and gaining advantages for a player and ban that player. And what was discovered by this user was the fact that even when the software is off, quote-unquote off, it is still monitoring whatever the user's doing, looking for that software, and thusly banning any user who uses hacks outside of actually in, SMITE and Global Agenda, what have you. If you're using a hack, regardless, if you're doing it on your computer and a game is installed and it happens to pick up on that, it will ban you for that. And so obviously this kicked up a lot of ruckus. A lot of players were upset. This isn't exactly the time to have security breaches or security in terms of privacy brought up, with a lot of things going on with the U.S. government and, monitoring and what have you. So it was sort of not exactly the best PR that Hi-Rez could have potentially had, even if it's not 100% true, even if that software only monitors blacklisted stuff. It's still something that was unknown to the general public and can be viewed as a violation of their privacy.
And even if it is only following, looking for the hacks and cheats or whatever, what business is it of Hi-Rez if I'm cheating in PlanetSide 2 or something? Shouldn't do. You're still an a-hole if you're doing it, but it's none of their business.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of users, when we posted this article, a lot of users brought up some good points. That what if you're just cheating in an offline game, right? A lot of people use cheats or hacks or hack engines to augment or add, unlimited gold or what have you in games that they play offline, where it doesn't matter if they cheat or not. And if that happens to be something that trips up the Hi-Rez detection software, then they could be screwed. And basically, we actually reached out to Hi-Rez and asked for a response, and Todd Harris, the COO of Hi-Rez, responded back to us through email, and he mentioned essentially that this is a software that players have given approval that can run whenever it's available. Essentially, it is part of the product, both the game and this sort of small patcher service, high patch service. And so in that sense, they don't believe that they're violating their EULA, their user license agreement. But it mentions that you can also simply disable it if you wish by going into the options menu of the patcher and telling it to not run, to be offline essentially. So it doesn't always look for a patch or whatever, and that is supposedly supposed to be the way that you disable the program. Now, once we posted this article, it was actually noticed by the original submitter of this issue, the Ferio, and he went and posted sort of like a breakdown of the response that was given to us by Todd Harris, where he then discussed what was wrong with what Todd said. Essentially, and we can actually provide all of these like in the description area of this YouTube video, because this is still emerging and it's a lot of he said, she said kind of thing, and a lot of Hi-Rez just denying everything. But essentially what he's saying is that even when you turn it off, it's still running in the background, even though it says it's paused. And he proves it in a video that when the server says it's paused in the Windows configuration, when it says it's paused, and he still uses a hack in a program, when he goes back to his SMITE account, that account gets banned as soon as he logs in, even when it's supposedly completely disabled and turned off. So a lot of players are viewing this as a blatant lie by Harris. Now, obviously, Harris may be unaware that it still runs or something like that, but it's very bad to sort of just come right out and say, oh, no, that's completely not what's happening, when there's somewhat physical proof that it can indeed happen in at least some scenario. Now, what do you guys think about this? Is this something that we should really blow out of proportion or at least pursue? Or is it something that is a little bit on the fault of both ends in terms of how it's sort of playing out?
I'm going to go with maybe not blow out of proportion, but definitely pursue, because there's no way you don't know what your updating service is checking for. I mean, you're the ones who designed it. And to let it, to basically say that you can't use anything at any point for whatever reasons outside of our games for fun. I mean, you can't even play an old StarCraft game and use a hack whatever to add some fun little whatever to it. You're not allowed to do that and play our games. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and the big issue is, of course, how do we know exactly it's doing what they're saying it's doing if they say it's, benign? Who knows? Again, you kind of get into this with the whole, what is the NSA looking at in our emails or whatever? Well, what else are they looking at? Are they looking at your porn or whatever,
Yeah.
or whatever? It's a horrible place to be right now. Like, if this had happened 2 months ago, it still would have been an issue, but with the recent stuff we've had, it's just that much more. I just want to say, too, that I pulled up my task manager while we were talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't played a Hi-Rez game in 6 months at least. And yeah, Hi-Rez high patch service is running.
And it will continuously run even if there's no application in the taskbar, because I believe it's an embedded service.
Yeah, it's not on my process tab. It's in my services.
Yeah, it does indeed run, even when, I checked to see if I even had Hi-Rez installed anymore on this computer, because I've redone it so many times and I didn't. But it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, someone could completely forget that they played that game and just have that service run indefinitely, collecting information and analyzing it. And because of the fact that that service is considered part of the product, it falls with under the EULA, where they have a user is giving permission to Hi-Rez to monitor, even though they're not aware that it's actually doing so because they don't have the application running at all. So I think definitely in the short run of things, this is something that Hi-Rez should correct immediately, whereby it should be something a player can disable easily. It should not continuously run no matter what. And in the long runs of things, I would definitely say change the way their monitoring service goes, where it doesn't ban if the game isn't actually running, which would make the most sense. I mean, there is obviously some things that they need to monitor for in terms of making sure people don't hack and whatever, and that's sort of just like a necessity, some type of monitoring for some things. But you can be pretty obscure with that and still accomplish the job of keeping hackers out. But as it stands right now, because Hi-Rez isn't even exactly being open about like what they're looking for, like we don't have a definitive list at all of what programs Hi-Rez considers unauthorized. It could be as simple as a macro program that allows you to string, key commands together that they're not even using at the time, or don't even use for gaming purposes. Some people use macros for like word processor or what have you. All these things are, these are questions, and they're not answered because of the fact that it's a little bit too obscure right now on Hi-Rez's part.
Tell me too, real quick. What was the delay between when the article was posted and you heard the response?
I posted the article right after I posted the article, or right as I was posting the article, I sent the email, and the delay was something along the lines of maybe 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, see, that just seems to me like the sort of thing where, given that kind of span, it's like Todd gets the email or if his PR does, whoever you contacted, he pops into the program and say, hey, does it do this? And they say, no, it doesn't. Okay. And he issues the blanket apology. It's sort of thing where they probably have to sit down and have a couple hour meeting on Monday and go through everything and then come up with a more clear or more in-depth statement and then start addressing the regular thing. It just sounds to me like he just gave the traditional PR sort of, deny everything, move on. It'll blow over.
Well, that may not actually be the case, because apparently I'm just going to call him Furio, like Furio. I don't know what else to call him. This name is very hard to pronounce. But according to him in his original post, he tried to contact Hi-Rez about this. He had already gone to Hi-Rez. He had already gone to Todd Harris, and Todd Harris had gave him the same sort of blanket response, that this is obviously they're against hacking, that you shouldn't be hacking if you want to use their products, etc., etc. So Todd at least was somewhat aware of it.
Okay.
And no doubt as the day went on, Todd became more and more aware of it, because I looked around and other people had written about the post, and other people had contacted Todd Harris, to ask him questions about that. So obviously we weren't the only individuals to bring it to his attention. But I still feel like he feels the company is within their legal boundaries to do this. That's the sort of overall message. There was no, apologetic tone to anything how he was saying it.
No.
So, all right. Well, so Hi-Rez may not exactly be the company that you want to hang around if you value every bit of your online privacy currently, or at this point. I would wait and see how that actually plays out. But our second news article for this evening actually deals with End of Nations, which I know a lot of people would be excited to hear about. End of Nations news. We haven't really heard about it since November, when the game fell off the face of the earth. And it ceased to exist, essentially. It was in closed beta. It was going pretty well. They were moving towards open beta. And Petroglyph was like, nope, open beta is not going to happen. We're not going to, we can't do it. There's some things we need to take care of. So they postponed it. Shortly thereafter, like a couple weeks literally, Petroglyph laid off 30 or so developers. And then after that, I almost said Tribesyn. After that, Trion Worlds. There we go. It was a T. Trion Worlds. They ended up taking over the development of it, and everybody was like, "Okay, Trion Worlds. They've made some good games. They're capable developers. They're not like newbies or anything like that." And everybody.
It's not like they have anything else going on, like Defiance or anything.
I know, right? Well, this is before they.
Well, I know, but they were obviously working on that at the same time. So it's like.
Honestly, I didn't think people thought it would take this long. I think people thought it would be like, a couple months, a couple months, wham, bam, you fix the balance issues, you change the couple mechanics. We're sitting on something like 9 months at this point. And the long story short, the game is coming back. Trion Worlds announced the remake of it, but it's a MOBA. It's straight up a MOBA.
It's like an RTS MOBA, so it's kind of a little different, but...
I have the Picard facepalm meme right now, just like, ugh. okay. They straight up call it a MOBA on the website. Like there's no scooting around it. They weren't like, oh, it has MOBA elements. They're like, it's a MOBA. Like they said it's a MOBA. You got to command a vehicle. They did show off some of the different commanders or what have you, the heroes, and they were mostly vehicles, save for one guy that looks sort of like a transformer. And they did mention, you didn't say that, Jason, that there's a little bit of cross combination to hybridization. There will be units that you can control. That's all the description says. There will be units. It's literally, I think, like 4 sentences on the teaser website right now. I mean, it is a teaser website. I'm not gonna like give it too much flack, but I mean, come on. If you're gonna even have a teaser website, give us a little bit more than End of Nations is a tactical MOBA where your success on the battlefield depends on the heroes and units you command, and quick decision making in the heat of combat. Yes, so is every other MOBA. Like, I don't.
So is every other game in a technical sense.
It's so obscure. Like, come on, give us a little bit more details here. But you got guys called like Colonel Booze or the Judge, Sidewinder, Decibel, and Hippocrates.
I wonder if they felt like they needed to have like characters.
I just don't understand.
Yeah, I'm just saying that just from like name recognition. Like, you know, if you play, not even talking about MOBAs, but if you play Tomb Raider, Lara Croft is the character there. If you play Half-Life, it's Gordon Freeman, you know. And they just didn't have any characters, no one you really name. And so maybe that was the thought.
I would go so far as to argue that an RTS is more recognizable by its factions than by a singular individual that is a part of that faction.
That's true, but even like StarCraft has some, like Kerrigan and some of the other ones, like, whose names escape me.
Yeah, just Kerrigan.
Exactly.
Like all you can think of is Kerrigan.
If that's the only one you can think of, you obviously, yeah. I was actually going to use that as the point of saying that, just reinforcing the whole faction side, because everyone knows every faction of StarCraft. But name more than one champion hero. Not gonna happen.
And name. It's not about just naming one or more champion heroes. If anybody has played I almost said a LOL, a League of Legends. If anybody's played a MOBA for any length of time, they'll be able to name some heroes, at least some. But the fact is, they'll only be able to name heroes from that particular game. They're not going to be able to just easily recognize heroes in any other MOBA. So giving them a name like this, right now is just, you can like, okay, they have a name, I got it. But there's no sort of like brand recognition. They would have been better off just retaining, being like, yes, okay, these 3 heroes in End of Nations MOBA are part of this faction, and they may still do that. There are people. If you look on the teaser website, there's commanders, quote unquote, is what you're called as a player in the background. But one of them looks like he loves space cadet women, and the other one is sort of like a sci-fi Blade Runner-esque individual with goggles. Like, they don't tell me anything about the game. They don't really explain any of that. So I just feel like they just took the game in a completely different direction, and not necessarily a direction that is going to be beneficial to them in the long run. And I'm really just curious why they would remake so much when the core of the game, like, I don't think anybody had an issue with End of Nations as a whole. I think people just had issues with individual parts of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I played it a little bit in one of the betas, and the issue I had was just the getting used to some of the stuff. It wasn't a very good new player experience, but you don't expect that in a beta, so I was still kind of struggling to find my way around, figure which units are better at this and that, whatever. But I kind of had fun doing it, and I mean, I didn't think it was something that needed a complete revamp to be a completely different game type. It's just weird that, because they've been working on this for over 3 years. That was when we first heard about it, and we ran some stuff on it in our magazine back in early 2010. So just for them to have gone for that long and redone it now, it's just weird.
The only thing I can think about is that they jumped on the EA bandwagon of let's make really bad business decision like usual, and make a MOBA after the craze has already hit full stream and people aren't going to care about it.
I think we're going to see 2013 as the crash of MOBAs. Like, I honestly think like this year is going to make every developer so tired of MOBAs that 2014 will be like little to no MOBAs ever like produced. Because if you think about it, last year was kind of like that, but for shooters. We had tons of shooters come out last year. Like an absolute... I mean, shooters are one thing that come out a lot, in large quantities every year. But last year it seemed like, I don't know, every other game release was a shooter, practically. And we're 6 or 7 months now into 2013, and I mean, I think we're at least 10 MOBAs in at this point, something like that. So, yeah, it's a little baffling. We'll see exactly what Trion Worlds has in store, how they're actually going to involve the units. Perhaps it's still a MOBA, but it uses the RTS sort of mechanics of the original, where you would control squads, but one of them had additional abilities. I mean, I'm just really grasping for how they could take the game and at least make it somewhat recognizable of End of Nations, because End of Nations was supposed to be about large RTS battles with a lot of players. I mean, we're talking at the original, when they were originally touting the game, they were saying like 50 players or so, 52 players, something like that.
I thought it was like 32 on 32 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it was really large. It was really large scale. The maps were large, and to take it to a MOBA now, it just seemed like you're getting rid of everything that made End of Nations unique to begin with.
Unless they're going to go crazy and still have it be really big, like 16
like 32
on 16
versus
or
32
something.
MOBA?
Yeah, something like that.
That would be really insane.
First ever RTS MMO, but oh man.
Can you imagine team fights in that game? Like, there'd be so many abilities going off, and oh my gosh. But yeah, one last thing I wanted to touch on was, when you think about a MOBA, there's less artwork actually than there is in an RTS, it seems, because in the RTS you have so many different units, each of them have different like looks and what have you, blah blah blah. Where in a MOBA you just have like a set number of heroes. Now over time those heroes grow, so you have more and more art. But I'm just curious if they're just going to take every sort of unique looking unit out of all the factions and make them individually heroes, like if that's how they're doing it.
That would be the worst. I mean, because again, that was one of the great things about I thought about End of Nations, was how you had the different vehicles and they had their own different capabilities. If it's just your hero plus generic minions, so to speak, that just seems a lot more boring.
End of Nations had a faction system. There were different factions. Yeah. So for it, I'll be really surprised, honestly, if they completely got rid of the factions. Because the factions, I mean, I would assume they would keep those, because that makes sense from a MOBA perspective anyways. You have two factions, warring against each other. And that may be sort of what spurred on their idea that they could do that. There was at least two. There may have been three. I think
it was just two. Yeah,
it was two. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I mean, it's been a while now, but there was at least two factions, yeah. And that could be like another sort of like thinking like, oh, that's easy. We have these obviously two different factions warring against each other, and they each have their own sort of specific units to each side. Those could be the heroes for each side, what have you. But it just seems like the easy way out, right? It just seems, I don't know. I say easy way, but it seems like the harder way. Like they could have just done some balance changes and released an RTS, because other than End of Nations, the only other RTS we've been sort of looking forward to is Command & Conquer from EA. I can't believe I've said that. I'm looking forward to an RTS.
There's that Shipbreakers one, remember?
Oh, that's right. Correct. I totally forgot about Homeworld Shipbreakers from the creators of Homeworld. It's not actually Homeworld Shipbreakers. It's Shipbreakers something. It has a... There is another part of the name. I just can't think of it. Is it Homeworld Shipbreakers? Let me see here.
No, it's not. It's the makers of Homeworld 2.
Hardware Shipbreakers. That's what it is. But it's from the makers of Homeworld, which is actually a really good RTS you guys should play. All right, so enough of End of Nations here. Now we're going to go talk about another MOBA. But this is more along the lines of U.S. government, where all three of us are based. We're not based in the U.S. government. We're based in America.
I am actually a senator.
You're a senator. Ooh. For Texas. What do we got to do to get that death penalty changed?
Over my dead body.
Oh. We can use the death penalty. No,
there you go. Yeah, exactly.
So the U.S. government they have approved League of Legends as a real sport. Yeah.
It happened.
It's done.
I should note, actually, I did a story about a year ago about a senator from Colorado who actually is a pretty big League of Legends player. So.
I interviewed him on
Oh,
my
you did?
original
Oh,
League of
okay.
Legends channel. Yeah, about SOPA.
Very
I
good.
totally talked to him about that. Oh, man, this small world, right?
He obviously had a lot to do with this. I mean,
Yeah, obviously.
Probably just some committee or something. That
He's
just
like,
rubbed
yes,
the stamp
this
on
has
it.
to be done. Vote yes. He's like campaigning for it and everything. It's like, this is a good thing we should have. So yeah, the government approved League of Legends as a real sport. It's comparable now to NFL, NHL, NBA, and whatever equivalents you want to use for whatever country you're from. It's equivalent to that, but for the U.S. government. What this essentially means is that we can watch it on ESPN 8. No. What it means is that it's really a technical reason. It's for players, League of Legends players who are international, to more easily come to the U.S. to participate in tournaments and, I guess, be with their teams that are U.S.-based, what have you. It's just easier altogether for the paperwork. Because professional players, by the U.S. government, if the government recognizes the sport as professional, they just can expedite that whole process in the paperwork. I think that's a good idea. Like, I honestly don't have a problem with League of Legends being a real sport. I think that some people are really upset that it is League of Legends. But if you just look at esports in general being recognized on some level, at least on some level, and arguably League of Legends is one of the best representations of esports in terms of how many viewers, because you know the government's going to look into how this sport, quote unquote, affects the country. And so, you know, this could very well be the first game among many games that begin to get recognized as official sport. I wouldn't doubt, you know, Valve would look into the same thing for Dota 2 with the international. I mean, they have very large tournaments too. And certainly Valve could orchestrate it on the same level that Riot could. But yeah, it's only for League of Legends. It's not a blanket for esports. But
So does this mean that in a few years we're going to see, just like they had the Senate hearings for the steroids in baseball thing, the Mitchell report and all that, we're going to see that for some League of Legends players who are having too much Red Bull? Is it a performance-enhancing drug?
they're like, oh, they were using macros.
I'm going to call them before the committee or something.
See,
They're going to get the Hi-Rez monitor to check on them?
That's actually brings up a good point. Like, and I think a lot of people were having issues with the whole real sport connotation given to League of Legends now because of the fact that they're like, how is that a sport? How's that a sport? You know, you're just sitting there, you're playing League of Legends, you're playing a computer game. It doesn't really involve any sort of physical activity. It does involve mental strain, much the same that checkers or chess, which is competitive, involves mental strain. But I don't know. I think some people just view it as too much of a video game to be really a sport.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like you said, yeah, I mean, it's a technical thing. It's just for legalistic purposes or whatever.
So I'm curious, then, what do you guys personally think about it? Are you proud of it? Do you not care about it, or is it something that you're kind of like, it really is sort of silly to give League of Legends a you know, statement or a label as a real sport?
I like it for the whole, like, the real reason why they did it. I mean, it's mainly just for international players to be able to play. That being said, yeah, I have a hard time categorizing this even close to a sport. Because, yeah, I mean...
But you play League of Legends, like...
I do, and that's exactly my point.
Just to be clear, you play League of Legends. It's not like you're hating on League of Legends or anything like that.
I know, I love the game. Well, I love the game, not necessarily always the community, but yeah, it's... There's not a whole lot of physical activity unless you, like, consider jumping up and down, yelling at your screen in rage frustration at a horrible teammate that sometimes happens. I mean, aside from that, you're pretty much just sitting there clicking a bunch.
Well, I was just gonna say, my part of it is I just think it's pretty much irrelevant. I think it's just a technical thing in terms of whether it's going to be considered a sport or, you know, this or whatever you want to call it. It's going to depend on how popular it is and how many millions of people it can have, how much money it makes, and so on.
But see, I understand that from like the short-term perspective, but I'm more looking at this from like the long-term perspective of what this could do. Like, in the short term, this isn't really anything. It's a technical thing. It's not going to change the U.S. into an esport nation. We're not going to be like South Korea where we're broadcasting it on ESPN. and we're having all these people cheer and what have you, is going to remain a online thing right now. But 20 years down the line, when Oculus Rift 10.0 is out or whatever like that, and you can be like full body immersed or somehow, there is a large possibility that as we get older as gamers and as we raise our own kids potentially as gamers and just gamer community in general continues to grow, then we could see something not unlike what happened in Korea, whereby we have a large amount of government backing of these tournaments, and you have like these broadcasted events and everything where the whole nation sort of turns in, and it could be one of those things, but it definitely is not going to be that thing right now. The U.S. government has like no interest, I think, in promoting esports,
Sure,
other than like saying, yeah, okay, I guess you can do that thing with this video game of yours.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Is this is irrelevant. This little statement by the government or whatever is irrelevant. How it's going to be in 20 years will depend on how many more people watch it and how much more money it makes and so on. Not whether the U.S. government approves it as a thing or whatever. It makes me think a little bit of like the poker craze, how that just kind of sprouted up about 10 years ago. Which again, it could be kind of equivalent. You sort of think it's not a sport because they don't do physical stuff or whatever, but that got big because a lot of people wanted to play it, wanted to do it, wanted to see it, wanted to play it, not because the government gave it its seal of approval.
That's true. That's very much true. I don't know. I think one day we're just gonna like, when I'm old, and Jason, you're even older.
Would Jason be alive then?
I was making the distinction that you were still alive. Like I wasn't.
Okay, sure.
I was old and Jason was dead. Like I wasn't gonna be like that. No, but I was saying when we're older, we may just like plop down in front of the TV and be like, let's see what who's winning the Masters Championship of League of Legends this year. And you'd be like, oh, team blah blah blah. That and we're gonna act like we know the teams, but we don't know those people anymore. And the people who actually are like casting out the events, they're like super old. They're gonna be from when we watched esports when we were young. Be like, oh yes, talking to our kids like he was one of the greatest players at the time. Blah blah blah. That's how I imagine it, because my father-in-law does that. He just sits there and watches that stuff. So yeah, one day I'm gonna be like that, I guess. I don't know. DOTA. How about some more MOBA news?
Oh.
Dota 2 going live.
Yay.
Any Dota players here?
Yeah, me. I will recently, obviously, because there was a whole episode where I asked people for keys.
Oh yeah, and you got spammed with them. Which they're irrelevant now, because it's gone live.
Right? But I got that cool little thing that rewarded you for having keys.
Oh, what was it? I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's just in your inventory. Don't really know what it does.
Oh, is that like the crystal thing? Like the red crystal? You guys, if you guys play Dota and you have that in your inventory, please tell us what it is, or if it's just like a badge of honor or something like that. I didn't really want to spend too much time talking about Dota going live because nothing really happened other than their whole like releasing everything slowly in waves, which makes sense. Nobody likes a broken game day one in open beta, and certainly, the most recent game that I can think of that had broken stuff on day one of open beta is Firefall, another big release. So Valve knows what they're doing, and certainly, I don't think anybody's going to be waiting too long to get in. But I kind of wanted to talk about what Valve has planned for Dota in the future. This is sort of something that, now that we've had sort of like the big, I feel like we've had the big three MOBAs like come out and really express themselves, if you will. You have League of Legends, which at this point is the veteran. I know, Dota original is the veteran, blah, 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 but I'm talking about from like the recent free-to-play, the last 4 years or so. You have League of Legends, you have SMITE, which is a completely different scenario, and then you have Dota 2, which arguably has a somewhat higher skill cap. I've played both League of Legends. I've actually played all three, and I have to say that Dota probably has the highest skill cap out of all three on a normal public level. Maybe not on a professional level. There's different things and what have you, and this is going to be a different argument for that. I'm sure will take up at least 15 comments of this video. But
all the haters.
Yeah,
I don't even want to go there because both sides are going to get very ugly on this one.
But
I have my own opinion, but yeah.
But going back to the original point, what I was making was the fact that they all had different amounts of content released when they went live. And I have to say that Dota 2 probably has the most content released. Now, granted, they were copying most heroes from the original Dota, but that's still quite a lot of heroes to come out with at release. You know, we've seen SMITE and League of Legends come out with a limited set and then quickly build upon those. But Dota, in an open beta sense or in a release sense, has produced quite a lot and produced an absolute ton of community content. Or I should say released a lot of community content. They didn't produce it. That was the community that did so. And then they have all the tournament support and the watching, the replays live and watching games live. All that stuff came with Dota 2 at release. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is because Valve has stated on the official website that once they finish the old roster of heroes from the original Dota, once they finish converting them over, they're going to add what? They're going to add new hats, what? And they've actually mentioned that they're going to add new heroes, perhaps, completely new features to the game. And I'm really curious what you think that they could actually add, or what you would like to be added to a game already so far along after, once it's been released. That was a really big build-up.
Yeah, being that it's one of the things that I still enjoy about League is all the skins that are available. It allows you to kind of play with your version of the same champion that everyone else wants to play with. I'd like to see some alternate skins. Obviously, I know that the visual characteristics of a lot of these characters are a lot more iconic than necessarily League has. I mean, who all hasn't seen Pudge and just laughed at it because it's awesome? But I'd like to see some skins. But new champions always, because it just adds more depth to the game with every champion that comes out.
You do realize, though, that there aren't, there's not skins in the normal sense for Dota 2. They're item sets.
Yeah, no, I know there's item sets and stuff, but I mean in-game, visual differences.
Oh, okay.
I guess that's how I would say it. Instead of skins, in-game visual changes to the characters.
Oh, in-game visual changes like their starting color changes, that kind of stuff?
I'm not going to put a certain specific label on it, just some way to make it unique to you.
The reason I asked is because I know you can mix and match different item sets for the heroes, which will make them theoretically different looking, because some of the items do change the overall outline of the actual hero. I'm just curious. I mean, I know you can do announcer packs right now and HUD skins, and I'm just trying to think of what other could be added in terms of skinning stuff.
Yeah, I guess it's just more. I'd hope for something more that I guess other people can identify you, because when you're playing it, you can make your own, what you see, a lot more different than the original. Again, with the HUD skins and everything, it changes everything you're seeing, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of customization. The more you can add to a game, the happier it makes me.
Jason, you're not a MOBA person, so
Don't ask me. Don't ask me, man.
This is one thing that I want to bring out. The original Dota had actually different modes. From the original Dota, Pudge Wars was born, which Pudge Wars was just bunches of Pudges, hooking each other, and whoever would get the hook would get, a kill or whatever, and that would add a point. And it was a really popular mode that came out of Dota. And so I'm wondering if, we've seen modding available for servers in Counter-Strike, Team Fortress. We've seen so much modding capability out of Valve's Source Engine, which is what Dota 2 runs on. Do you guys think that we'll actually see the ability for the community to mod Dota 2 and create their own modes to share with people in the future?
I really hope so, because, that's kind of how it spawned, was off of a mod. It would just kind of be an evolution of the game from where it came from, in a good way.
And at the very least, even if you don't have actual modding tools, you'll probably wind up with people doing whatever kind of crazy stuff they want to try, like doing ARAMs in League of Legends, or any other kind of just variant kind of play that they'll do, and eventually it might become a sanctioned, actually built kind of game mode in the game as well.
Yeah. For me, honestly, I'm most looking forward to if they have any sort of modding capability, because I think that's one thing that MOBAs really lack right now. MOBAs have the ability for players to, make their character look different and try different modes, or even make their own modes with their own rules, but within the confines of how the game actually functions. To be able to actually go in there and say, okay, I want to take this set of rules from, say, Dota. Like, I want to take these heroes, they already have their abilities, you already have these shop interfaces, but I want to make it where it's no longer about killing enemy heroes, it's about building bases or capturing bases in this area, or Pudge Wars or what have you. And you just have a lot more, I think, freedom, and I think the communities in games like this has shown that they can come up with a pretty amazing amount of good content for games on their own if given the chance. And I think that's something that no MOBA company, no company developer that's made a MOBA has done before. And it's certainly, I think, something that Dota 2 would be prime for. But that's just my fanboy.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's just my idea. So.
No, I agree.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. So nice. I'll make sure to give you an extra gold star tonight for backing me up on that article.
Woohoo!
Thanks.
Gold stars are awesome.
All right. Well, enough of the MOBA news. Let's get back to talking about Hi-Rez. So, Hi-Rez, yes, we reestablished that they are doing some iffy things. Now, this time, at the same day, on the same day no less, or roughly the same day I should say, it was revealed that Tribes Ascend would not be getting any more large major updates. Now, Tribes Ascend was just released in what, 2011, late 2011 or so?
I think it was actually last year.
2012, really. Well, I know it became available in 2011.
Well, yeah, the full release, not the beta.
Yeah. Tribes Ascend was originally released, I'm pulling it up right now, April 12th, 2012. Yeah, you can play it in 2011.
One of those shooters that you talked about coming out last year.
Yeah, exactly. It was a ton of shooters last year. And Tribes was one of them. And Tribes was actually a pretty decent shooter. There was some balance issues at first, but I think they sort of squared them away at one point. And Tribes was very popular. There was a esports scene developing for it. Things were looking good for Tribes. Now, here comes SMITE. SMITE is the new MOBA from Hi-Rez. The developer is now focusing a lot of attention on SMITE, and Tribes has suddenly stopped development. No more, for the next 6 months at least, will there be development efforts placed towards Tribes. There may be a small patch with a couple more maps and some bug fixes, but there is currently no ETA on that, and only one person is actually working on that, it seems. They mentioned that there was only one individual actively working on new maps, and they didn't know if they was going to come out anytime soon or not.
So now when something's broken, we'll know who to blame.
Yeah. So basically what they're saying is, this game isn't making enough money for us anymore. We're going to put our efforts more into SMITE and towards Global Agenda 2, which is set to come out after SMITE. It's their next project. They basically said from there it would be more likely that they will make a Tribes Ascend 2 instead of a large update for the original. That's what I think really kind of ticked me off when they were like, no, we're not even gonna like think about supporting Tribes after that. Like this whole period, we're not gonna think about it. And you know what? We might just make a sequel instead. Now, granted, there were sequels to the original Tribes, but they weren't like a couple years apart or something, or were they? I don't know. It's been so long since I played the original Tribes. I could be completely incorrect. But it would be nice if they actually supported their number 2 game longer than apparently a year and a couple months, officially.
Yeah, and how do you get people to trust into you for when Tribes Ascend 2 comes out if they think you're going to do this again?
Well, that's the thing. Like, people had the same issue with Global Agenda.
Global Agenda, yeah.
They felt like Global Agenda was dropped like a hot potato whenever Tribes began to be developed. And to some extent, it was true. It was a little bit less obvious, I think, because Hi-Rez wasn't as well known back then. And Global Agenda wasn't as big of a game as SMITE or Tribes. But it still was something they did, and then it seems like they're sort of repeating history here, doing the same thing with Tribes. And I don't know if that is a business decision based off of lack of funds, like they cannot support developing for 2 games, or if it is just like a business model of we're only going to support this game for a couple years or until, our income reaches this level for it, and at that point we're just going to focus efforts on the next game, because they've already sort of announced what they're going to do next. They're going to do, finish SMITE, and then they're going to work on the Global Agenda, and then maybe Tribes of Sin 2. Like, they already sort of have it planned out. And in there, they're not really planning upon, like, how long are we actually going to support this game from a development standpoint after it's released. Which, honestly, it's a little bit different, and it's probably one of the... I kind of feel like they're approaching it from, like, a standard box copy release of a game. Where a person buys the box copy, they may get some new content for the next 6 to 8 months or so, and then that's it for the game until, you know, they're stuck with how the multiplayer is at that point until the next version of the game, you know, Unreal 2005 comes out or something like that. You know, that's sort of how I'm getting the feeling of how Hi-Rez is sort of operating their development structure. What do you guys think?
I mean, you wouldn't think that they'd be that, you know, like intentionally short-sighted, that they're just doing it because, hey, we're only do it for a year and then screw it. You'd think that this is speaking to some larger issue, that they just realize that this isn't making the money, or they're going to make more money by doing the next thing, which, again, brings about its own problems. This is the sort of issue we had when we did, you know, when I was in the trading card game industry. You'd have games that would last for like a year or 2 years if they weren't that successful. And then the company would try to make the next one, and of course people didn't believe that because there were still, yeah, it wasn't making much money maybe, but there was still some people playing the old stuff that really loved it, and they would talk about how this company isn't, you know, committed to its products or whatever, and then it goes into the next thing, and eventually, you know, the trading card market kind of imploded for a number of reasons, but that probably helped contribute to it. So, yeah, you do wonder how they can engender a strong community and how they can keep people coming back to them time after time, if this is how it's going to be perceived that they do business.
Yeah, and I mean, just recently, or in February, I guess, Hi-Rez did release a Game of the Year edition, which unlocked all the classes, weapons, and equipment in a single package, which again sort of like reinforces the whole. They're approaching this not from a free-to-play development perspective, but from like a traditional development perspective, where they're done with the game and they use the funds that they make with that game to propel them towards the next game, and so on and so forth, which may have worked 10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's not how games, especially free-to-play games, are developed nowadays.
Especially any kind of online game.
Yeah,
I mean, really.
Exactly. Online games are of the evolutionary type now. They're not of the sort of static, you get individual sequels between. You might now have a set of 5-6 updates, which would be the equivalent in content-wise as a quick sequel or something like that. So definitely, I'm not really happy about that. I was let me make this straight. I was terrible at Tribes of Sin.
Me too.
I was
great at the original, terrible at Ascend.
Terrible at Ascend, yeah. And you were good at the original, but terrible at Ascend.
Yeah, and shooters are my primary thing. I might have been because of the whole balance issue when I first jumped in. I just like dying within seconds. It's like, wow, this is. And I couldn't get past that. I just could not get any time to play to really spend time on it. Versus the original, I was the one, you know, rocket jumping and disc launcher to the face. Heck yes, but.
See, yeah. For me, I couldn't get behind it because like I felt like I was never shooting at people. I felt like I was just always shooting at the ground beneath them. Like
it's true, yeah.
Like I didn't really like that. Like I couldn't get into the groove, if you will. But I knew I could see that it was a decent game by its own right, and there was certainly an audience for it. I wasn't gonna hate it for that. But it's just really disappointing that they decided to cut development on it so much. It seems like what Hi-Rez can do is they can have one game in full production, one game in development, and then they can't really support the previous game with development. They can support the servers, at least the servers haven't been shut down, but they can't really create content for the game that's on the back burner now.
Should we start calling them low res? Because
low res.
Oh,
I'm becoming less of a fan.
Low res studios. That actually sounds like they make indie games or something like
16-bit game.
Low res studios. Maybe that's how Hi-Rez started. They started making low res games and then they got into making high res games. Who knows? I Alrighty, well that goes ahead and finishes up our news topics for this week. Why don't we go ahead and drop down over to the weekly bombs. There is a weekly bomb that I would like to start off with, dealing with Nintendo. I'm going to actually give a bomb to Nintendo, and that is for their kind of asshole-ish move at the recent Evolution Fighting Game Championship, which basically is where players go across the world to do Street Fighter tournaments, to do Marvel vs. Capcom tournaments, and this year there was a Super Smash Brothers tournament, which was pretty nice. It was, I believe, the first year they had it at the EVO, and Nintendo attempted to shut it down. They completely tried to not only turn off the stream, whereby the games could not be streamed and you couldn't watch the tournament, but they wanted to actually completely shut it down in general, where nobody could actually participate. They didn't say why, and Nintendo does have the right, since they own the IP, to do so as they please. But it was kind of a slap in the face, honestly, because it was right after supporters had helped raise $95,000 for charity just to see the game included in the tournament. So, I mean, that's when you're going against charity, you can't really spin that.
You're never gonna win.
You're never gonna win.
Oh, yeah, one of my friends is well, I guess still currently at Evo, but when he heard what was going on, he was like, "You got to be kidding me!" It was ridiculous. Everyone was quite upset.
Now, do any of you play Super Smash Brothers?
Yeah, well, I'm a fan of the original, but I've played them all.
Yeah, not for a while. Not since I moved down here and had some friends. Didn't have some friends around to play with, but yeah, I used to play it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Ness and Fox all day long.
I have such very, very good N64 memories with Super Smash Brothers that even though I've moved on really now to PC gaming and stuff, I still have a very soft spot in my heart for
I still recently got our hands on a copy of Super Smash Brothers for 64, and I am not ashamed to say I have spent quite a time on it.
Oh, it's for the store?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have to come in and try that.
Oh, we are not letting it go either. It's going to be
nice.
Forever.
Jason, what's your weekly bomb?
I'm going to give a dub bomb to. Well, you talk about $95,000 in your piece, but I'm going to up the ante. I'm going to go all the way to $500,000. Talking about in mine. Give me a dub bomb to the anonymous donor who put up the $500,000 bail to get Justin Carter out of prison. Of course, the story about him, most people know by now, is he's a League of Legends player, and he said on Facebook after drawing with a friend in a bad game or whatever, he's like, I'm going to shoot up the school.
How old is he?
He's a teenager. I don't know the exact age, but I think he's 16, 17, 18.
Saying he's a teenager pretty much tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of his, like, what his verbal maturity, I guess. Yeah.
And the thing is, this is back in like February, I think, is when this happened. So, and they of course they investigate him. You see that sort of thing. You should look into it after Newtown or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they haven't found anything that really signifies anything other than him just making an offhanded, stupid remark. But he's still been stuck in prison for 5 months, with a bail set at $500,000. And now that this last couple of weeks, this idea is really picked up steam. The story has. So somebody actually stepped forward and put forth the entire $500,000 bail to get him out. If I had to guess, I'm just saying this completely out of the blue, I would almost bet it was like the president of Riot or someone like that.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, who stands to benefit as an anonymous donor to get this person out of jail? And Riot does, because it's bad PR. Yeah,
exactly. That would be my guess. That, or I guess pro players wouldn't have that much. They don't even have that much money going around. But yeah, probably someone like that. Somebody firmly invested in Riot, president or CEO or whatever.
No pro player wants to give up 500. No,
there is that.
No 22-year-old wants to give up 500 grand to let some kid out of prison, no matter how good their heart is. Most likely. I mean, we say all this we want, but Riot would honestly stand to gain the most, because it would get him out. It would be a good gesture, and it would keep them out of the limelight, as much as possible, without them directly interfering as a company. So, who knows? Maybe Riot gave that person the 500 grand, and then that person gave it. I mean, there's so many ways you could be like, Watergate this.
I could see them like helping to pay his legal bills or something like that when
Yeah.
it comes to that. But yeah.
Yeah, well, kudos to that individual. Thank you for that share, Jason. Now, Kevin, this is the point where you tell me like some $1 million story or something like that. You gotta up the ante just a little bit more.
How about 309 billion?
Oh, 309 billion.
I don't know how much you've heard about this, but I figured you would do this. I'm going to give a bomb to the Black Legion on EVE Online for their recent destruction of the thought unkillable, well, at least was never going to be killed because so few exist, but a Revenant supercarrier. It was taken down just a couple of days ago, and it is worth 309 billion ISK, which converts to between 8 and 9,000 actual US dollars. It is by far the most expensive thing to ever be destroyed. Only three of them existed in game up until this happened. Now there's two. How it happened? A member of the Black Legion, or at least one of their friendly alliances, basically got implanted into this group for months, helped them raid on carriers and stuff using these small super carrier fleets they would use, including this Revenant. And then after he had gotten their trust, he led them into basically a trap, which they were waiting with a giant fleet of super carriers to catch whatever came through, and they caught and blew up a Revenant and 9 other super carriers. It was rather incredible. I watched it, and they went down fast. It ended up being like for every minute of the fight, they blew up 50 million or 50 billion ISK worth of ships.
For those of you who aren't EVE players, to give you an idea, a super carrier is like the second largest ship you can buy in the game. It takes years to train for, and generally speaking, it's like a raid boss. If players want to kill it, it will take a long time if it's playing correctly. But in this case, it got caught with his pants down and went down fairly quickly. And 300 billion ISK is... It's like, if you had 300 billion ISK, you were a really rich man in that game. Holy crap, that is a lot of
I told
money.
you I could raise it.
That is true. That is very true. Although when you compare it to real life money, you fall behind everybody.
Who's talking about real life money? This is 309 billion. I win.
Sure.
But no, I'm just impressed with how it went down. I mean, that takes a lot of guts and balls to implant yourself to go for something that big and to pull it off. That's like, and the guy, the alliance who actually lost it was like, we're upset, but I'm actually just so beyond floored that this even happened that I can't like get mad.
He's like, I ain't even mad. He just says a Will Smith meme where he just like puts his arms up. He's like, I ain't even mad. It's true.
I'm just impressed.
I'm just on the internet too much. That's why I know that stuff. All right.
The bomb.
All right. Glad to have that there. And yeah, I was actually in space when that happened. In my own EVE space.
What time was it? What time is it in space?
I don't know. I don't know because it goes that EVE space.
It was dusk. Good dusk.
It was dusk.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
It was Dust 514.
Ew, no. Get away from that.
Dust
Kidding.
514. All right.
Someone's gonna get mad at me for saying that.
It's whatever. Who cares? All right. So the member bombs themselves. It looks like I'm gonna get the hardest one this week. We have X Crook. It's just X Crooked X, but he does it with 003DX.
Because he's elite.
He's elite. It's totally 2002, man, but okay. This is, as I'm not sure whether I love or hate it, I have a bomb. Man, his eloquence is quite high for his name to be. He must have made this when he was like 11, the name. All right, so I have a...
Don't listen to him. We love you, X Crooked X.
X Crooked X. You just know it's like, it's playful banter, man. That's all it is. As I'm not sure, you're going to love this way I read your comments, so don't even worry about it. As I'm not sure whether I love or hate it, I have a bomb. Note, neither an A-bomb nor the bomb for Gotham City Imposters. It's one of the very few free-to-play FPS games that is extremely fair to their free-to-play player base, allowing all combat items plus weapons to be unlocked through gameplay at a rather speedy rate. And the amount of damage weapons must do, holy crap. Combined with the I added that in, but combined with regenerative health, allows the game to play at a nice speed, neither too slow nor too fast, just right. However, the matchmaking system is crap, and will cause you to get matched up against either people who do not know how to play, or those so good and so cheap that they will take 30 plus kills in a game. Also, no dedicated servers, so if the host has a slow or spotty internet connection, the entire game suffers for it. XCrookedX, thank you so much for your quite eloquent, there we go, unlike myself, disposition of Gotham City Imposters.
We should hire him to do the review.
Totally. You should just post that in the review section of the Gotham City Imposters profile. It is that good. Now,
Make sure to misspell every other word like I do.
I'll take the next one.
That.
And then, yeah, you gotta have to misspell it though. Like, you can't have that much credibility in one of our reviews. There has to be some rage typing, at least in part of it. Kevin, you're gonna take the next
like 4
one?
times through it as well. Yeah, I'll take the next one. It's from our man. He is like here every week. I love it. And honestly, I think he answers like everything for like.
He's our number one
every part
fan,
of it.
man.
It's so great. Anyway, Air Splash yet again. Awesome job. He's done. I have a bomb for EA and DICE for picking up. Wait for it. Star Wars Battlefront 3. I'm like raising my arms in victory. I know it's last month's news, but I'm ecstatic that a franchise from my childhood is coming back. I saw the trailer that was at E3 and literally yelled yes while on the couch. I have to agree with this. I still own a copy of Battlefront and Battlefront 2. I never played it because I don't have an Xbox, but I still keep the copies because of how much they meant to me and how much fun I had playing them. So I am in the same boat.
Did you ever play the original one, Jason?
No, but I had a friend who played it a lot, and I don't know if it was the first one or the second one. He we'd have lunch like every other day or so at work, and he'd be telling me about it all during lunch.
It was a gem. It was an absolute gem of a game. It was so good. I cannot wait for the third one. It is, if you enjoy, I mean, it's being made by DICE too, so it's like Battlefield meets Star Wars with giant vehicles. And I remember in Battlefront 2, I almost say Battlefield 2. On Battlefront 2, you could actually get into like the robotic vehicles as well and shoot missiles at people and lasers and
yeah, you could play like the Hellfire droids with like all the rocket launchers on you, or you could be like destroyer droids and all kinds of stuff. It was awesome. You could be Jedi too. That was pretty sick.
I'm
flying across the map.
We'll see exactly what time period they put the newest game in. I'll be curious to know whether or not it will play on the old
Episode
movies
7?
Or it'll play on the brand new ones. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if it actually will come out around the same time. We'll have to find out. So the question of the week last week then. Let's go ahead and move on to that. If you could go pro in any game, what would it be? Jason, there wasn't a MMOBomb for you, so why don't you go ahead and take the first one on this?
All right, this is from It's TJ. That's how I'm going to choose to pronounce that. Hope I got it right. TJ.
Yeah.
If I could be an esports pro in any game, it would definitely be Hello Kitty Online. But in all honesty, I'd love to see Rift jump to the popularity where esports would be possible. With all the unique possibilities and builds, it can make for an extremely interesting dynamic. Plus, I'm pretty kick-ass.
It's TJ, you are indeed kick-ass. And thank you for your kind suggestion that Rift should have more esport compatibility. I definitely think that Rift is a game with possibilities in terms of all your skills and whatnot, but whether or not tab targeting can continue to be used in esports, I will not know. Kinetic Fetus, though, he has the exact same idea as you, It's TJ. He says, as far as a pro esports player, I want to be the best Hello Kitty Online player. That's a thing, right?
That's got to be that. You know, have we ever done a video of that?
You know, Jason, me and you maybe have to do a gameplay video.
We might have to do.
I might jump in on this one.
Yeah, we should totally do. Is it even?
I'm not
still
even
running?
kidding. I'm looking this up as we speak.
I'm on the site. The site is still there.
Okay, we got to totally do.
Although the last news update was on March 30th, 2012.
Oh, it's okay. It's still Hello Kitty. Like we can totally jump into that and have a good time. You have just spawned what our next commentary first look will be. It'll be for Hello Kitty Online. I cannot wait for that video. Thank you for that, Kinetic Fetus, and also for It's TJ recommending Hello Kitty Online. All right.
How do I even pronounce this name? It's SCNO0B1.
Skinobi.
I think that's a protocol.
Skinobi1?
Skinobi1?
Get instead of Obi-Wan? I don't know. That's where I'm going to go with it. Really simple. Bloodline Champions, because it requires more skill than any other game I have seen so far.
Look at that. Just like straight to the point.
Straight and to the point, yeah.
Bloodline Champions. It's got skill. That should be like their
That's
should
their
be like
tagline.
their tagline. Be like, Bloodline Champions. There's skills in this game. I don't know. Well, thank you for all your kind comments and different opinions. I am glad that we have had this discussion with you guys today, because out of this will spawn a Hello Kitty Online first look with 3 of us. I'm sure that'll be dazzling. For this week's
Dude,
question...
they have a plane. They have an airplane.
Oh, you can get in an airplane in Hello Kitty Online?
Yeah.
Oh, we
Dude,
totally have to grind for that.
This game is going to be amazing. Can't even tell you.
You know what we got to do? We'll totally have to do like a drunk Hello Kitty first look night, where we just like we drink a little bit and then we play Hello Kitty Online for 20 minutes all together. I'm sure
that board game, the beer and board games thing, but for Hello Kitty Online.
Exactly like that. The last time we did a triple commentary was when we did it for that card game that I cannot remember right now. That was free to play, and that was hilarious. That was with the old members of MMOBomb, Jess and Magic Man. So I think we need, as a trifecta here, I think we need to have our own sort of memories made outside of the podcast as well. Memories. Memories. Many memories. Question of the week this week. What info that are you okay with game developers collecting from players? There were some weird pauses there. What info are you okay with What info are you okay with game developers collecting from players? Basically,
wow, that's deep.
That is deep. Like, I mean, think about it. There's sometimes some information has to be collected, like your computer specs, right?
Yeah, but like
beyond that,
a lot of people lie about their age and stuff. So
are you like sometimes they ask you for a summary? What do you like to do? What games are your favorite games? What kind of games do you like to play? At what point does it become too much information to collect? At what point? Because sometimes when an application sends you something like, would you like to send your statistics so we can better improve our product? That kind of thing. Do you say yes or do you say hell no? Those are the questions, the kind of questions, rather, that I would like to see answered from our community. I'm interested to see at what point do they sacrifice a little bit more of their security. Privacy. I keep combining those things. They're all intertwined, but we're talking about privacy here. Kevin, Jason, what about you guys? At what point? When do you say no?
I don't know. I'm a pretty private person. I think you guys probably have noticed that one by now, or at least all the listeners have. I wouldn't put a ton out there. I'm not a huge... that's rough. I mean, I guess I'm okay with like what's required to play the game, like in the most basic sense. Making sure I'm supposedly 18 or whatever it is for some games, and making sure my computer can handle it. But do they need to know everything about me? I mean, what does that really accomplish? So I don't know. I'm not okay with them getting too much from me. And they definitely don't need to be knowing what other things I'm doing on my computer. Not that I'm ashamed of them. It's just, it's not their business.
Yeah, in terms of being in the game, then I don't mind a whole lot. And I kind of wish they almost had more ways to maybe opt in at least to collect info. Like, I'd like to see how much time do I spend, raiding? How much time do I spend in a group? How much time do I spend crafting? Or stuff like that would be kind of neat for them to be able to collect. But yeah, as long as it's still in-game. Out of game, screw you. Get away.
Yeah.
Go away.
All those survey pages, that kind of stuff, nah.
Well, sure.
I'm not gonna answer survey pages if I don't have to. And usually if the survey pages just involve like, what was the last 5 MMOs you played, that kind of thing. But I would never say, yeah, this program can actively collect data on my usage habits and send that back. Because there are things like that. There are like feedback stuff that programs are built into not only the game, but I mean, we saw it with Hi-Rez. You don't think Hi-Rez is the only service out there that is attached to a game that monitors things on people's computers. There has to be other things that people haven't discovered or perhaps just aren't very much talked about. So I'm really curious, like, now that this sort of is coming to light, whether anybody is going to sort of tighten up the belt, if you will, on how much information and what kind of information they'll be giving out to developers. Food for thought, guys. is it so easy to distinguish what's okay to send to people, what's not? Let's hear it from you, the listeners/viewers. But that's going to be our episode this week. We leave it on a heavy note, if you will. And much appreciation from Jason and Kevin, who doesn't have a last name. Kevin, you're so mysterious.
Love it. It's a myth. My last name is like one of those legends that goes down in history.
We like hang out and everything, and I don't know your last name.
That is not true.
How does this work? Hey, according to this podcast, no one knows your last name.
Okay, that's true. Dang it! I got caught.
Aha!
I got you last week. You got me this week.
Right.
1-1.
I just clapped into the mic. Hopefully that's not like super loud. I'm so proud. I got it. I got Kevin. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this free to play podcast. Jason, let's hear the man's Twitter.
The man's Twitter is @WinterInformal, and the man's Twitch is twitch.tv/JasonWinter.
The man is the man.
The man.
It's like the 70s. You like kick down the door. I'm the man. Mr. Winter. And Kevin.
The old in front of it. Ooh, I'm sorry.
Old
I was
man.
born in the, I was born in the 70s.
Did you see where he slipped that in there? He slipped the old right at
I don't
the
mind
end.
it I don't mind it from him. It's you.
It's from me. Oh, ouch.
We shouldn't mention that the age difference between me and Mike.
I see Kevin's picture on the Skype call. It looks like he's about 18 or something.
That's a really old picture. So yeah.
He's got all black and white, and he's like hoodie on. Like, I'm such a jaded individual.
I just never bothered to change it, Mr. Grumpy Cat.
Yeah, I've had Grumpy Cat for a while. All right, what's yours, Kevin?
No social media, K.
K. And I'm still not following you.
I noticed. Someone else is, and he favorited something awesome.
Your
So high five, and I apologize for the old comment, because
it's all right.
that was uncalled for. He follows and favorites, so.
So there.
And then myself, Spunkify, @Spunkify on Twitter. And then MMOBomb every Wednesday. You can see my lovely face. Watch me spaz out, if you will, during our weekly bomb session where we try out different free-to-play games starting at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Times on Wednesdays. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Free to Play Podcast. If you want to learn more about any of the articles we talked about today, the links will be in the description. I know some of you have been requesting that. And if you have any other questions, concerns, comments, or suggestions, you know where to leave them. You guys have been sending stuff to my email, and I have to say thank you so much for doing so. Keep sending your requests to my email. Keep sending your weekly bomb suggestions and all that good stuff, the fan mail, whatever, drawings, whatever can make Kevin and Jason even more jealous that I get to put my email here and they don't. But all right. I guess you guys could put your email. You can send fan stuff to them too. Yeah.
Don't send me anything.
I won't hoard it. Someone draw Jason as the stallion, as the silver stallion, and I will post that picture in the video if someone actually draws it. It doesn't have to be a good picture, but it just has to be a picture of Jason as the stallion. It's the beautiful stallion, Jason.
Terrifying.
Beautiful stallion. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and end this episode then. Spunkify out. Later, guys.